Hello, Chris Conroy here. Interest in personal aviation has been with us pretty well since the Wright brothers first took to the air almost 100 years ago. And it's had its ups and downs as the 20th century has progressed. There have been times in the early days when regulations allowed people, or lack of regulation if you like, allowed people to build and fly their own aeroplanes. But then as the skies became more and more populated with both small and large aeroplanes, regulations were enforced which effectively disenfranchised people who wished to pursue aviation as a purely recreational activity. Now, in around about the mid-70s, the hang gliding movement started up as a result of a gentleman named Mr. Regallo, who designed a particular type of wing that made it possible for individuals to hang underneath this wing and use wave lift or even thermal lift to soar for extended periods of time. But a lot of these people lived in areas where there were no cliffs and no ridges and no mountains. So they then set about fitting small engines to hang gliders, and that's how the ultralight movement throughout the world really began. Now, there's a tremendous undercurrent of interest in aviation throughout the world community, and it expresses itself in different ways. We have a media, in this country at least, in Australia, which is largely ignorant of aviation and which, whenever a small problem arises, sensationalises light aviation. An accident involving one or two people, which does not necessarily involve injury to an aircraft, hits the headlines. All small aircraft are referred to as ultralights, whereas even a horrific car smash may only receive a passing mention. So we have also people in the community who are perfectly happy to have pilots flying the airliners, to have pilots flying helicopters, rescue helicopters, etc., to have pilots flying military aircraft, but which are up in arms and endeavour to shut down the small airports, which are actually the training grounds for the pilots who provide all of these services to the general community. But underlying all this, there are a vast number of people in the Australian community who have an interest at whatever level in recreational aviation. Their fathers or grandfathers may have flown in the First or Second World War. They may have wanted to be a pilot when they were young but weren't able to because of cost constraints. A lot of people started flying in their late teens and then got married and could no longer afford it. The stories go on and on. But the interest in aviation is there, and it's a truly powerful force. And as a result of that, the ultralight or light recreational aviation movement in Australia is one of the strongest in the world. Now, in the early 1980s at Mangalore in Victoria, at Easter, in around about 1984, a meeting took place which established an organisation called the Australian Ultralight Federation. This federation has grown in strength and credibility throughout not only the aviation but also the government communities in Australia, and it is now a force to be reckoned with regardless of what aspect of recreational aviation you may be interested in. We took the opportunity at the National Fly-In at Easter 2000 at Narromine to interview a number of the executives of the Australian Ultralight Federation, and the story they have to tell is fascinating indeed.
Well, my duties as president is, I guess like any association, I am a spokesperson for the federation, and chair the meetings, but it is the members through the board that make all the decisions. I've been president now for approximately 8 months, but I've been a board member of the Ultralight Federation since the beginning of the federation. I was at the very first board meeting in Canberra, back in the days when we only flew single seat 115 kilo aeroplanes, and we couldn't fly higher than 300 feet above the ground, and we couldn't cross roads. And now we come to places like here at Narromine, where many pilots have flown, for example, as far as from Perth, and the whole world in ultralight aviation has totally changed. Well, the impact of those changes is that now we are flying recreational aircraft, and it's a sport, it's a recreation, and we're not flying around the back paddock in ever decreasing circles. We're now flying around Australia. In fact, we had an ultralight pilot only recently flew to New Zealand. Members of the Federation are so diverse. They range from public servants unemployed, doctors, lawyers, engineers. In fact, the most amazing thing, both here at Narromine, in local clubs, is how people that would never normally mix and meet and talk because of a love of flying.
Operations Manager Paul Middleton has over 10,000 flying hours as a commercial instructor and charter pilot. As a result of his experience, he was asked to join the Aviation Regulatory Authority, where he spent 17 years. Middo sees the light sporting aviation movement as the cradle of all types of aviation in the future, and as a result of this commitment, he joined the AUF in 1994 in order to further the cause. He brings to his area of responsibility a quiet authority tempered with understanding and support for all pilots, and his impact on the overall safety and credibility of ultralight operations throughout Australia has been great indeed. Rod Hewitt-Cook also spent many years with the CAA, joining the AUF in the early 1990s. Rod has extensive aircraft engineering experience and has been a modeller all his life. As technical manager, Rod's responsibility is to oversee engineering standards and ensure that all aircraft not only conform to the regulatory requirements, but are built and maintained to the highest aviation standard. He has been at the cutting edge of the lengthy and sometimes difficult growth of ultralights, from the fairly flimsy contraptions of the early days of the movement to the sophisticated and soundly engineered aircraft we see today. Rod's articles in Australian Ultralights are a feature of the magazine and continue to improve the breed. Now, as a result of the efforts of the people whom you've just met, it's been possible for a large number of people in Australia to put together aircraft such as mine behind me here, which is a kit aircraft that's available for anybody to build at home. And it's supplemented by the Slepchev Storch, the Australian Lightwing, the Drifter, the X-Air, and a number of other single and two-seat aircraft that are eminently affordable, enormously safe, give you a tremendous level of performance, are easy to build, are easy to own, and you can maintain them yourself. Now, that legislation leads the world, and it's something which must be protected at all costs. The only way to do that is to make the Australian Ultralight Federation even stronger, and you can do that by joining. This has been Chris Conroy for the Australian Ultralight Federation. Happy landings.